another Gold Coast Central Chamber of Commerce webinar. The Chamber is very focused during these challenging times to bring the latest information and seek guidance from our important leaders in the city, and today's another one of those occasions. So thank you for joining us. The speakers today, we've got Marion Charlton from the airport, which I'm sure is very well known to all of you, very accomplished airport leader, having worked overseas and in Australia, having, I didn't realise quite the extent of the Olympic connection, but having worked in Atlanta during the Atlanta Olympics, Sydney during the Sydney Olympics, Gold Coast during the Commonwealth Games, and also Glasgow during the Glasgow Games. So almost a Commonwealth Games specialist, Olympic Commonwealth Games specialist. So thanks, Marion, for joining us. The other person speaking today is Robbie Bennetts. Robbie's an established entrepreneur, I think is probably the most appropriate description, having established some material financial services company in the form of Professional Investment Holdings, and probably more recently well known to us all in relation to On Platinum ICT. So today's topic is planning for the road to recovery. The format of the session is that Marion is going to go first and going to speak, and then Robbie will follow Marion, and then we'll have a Q&A session after that. So it's just sort of typical of the format that we've been running. Just a couple of notes to the webinar. Please turn your microphone off if you're not speaking. As to whether you have your camera on is entirely up to you. In terms of questions, there is capacity to ask questions via the chat panel. There you go. That's why we have our microphones off. And so if you'd like to ask a question, please utilise the chat service within Zoom and just type your questions in there, and then at the end I'll coordinate those questions. I think we'll go straight into it. So Marion, over to you.
Thanks, Ken. And actually, you're probably the best dressed group I've seen on Zoom for a while. Everybody I've been speaking to so far is in their tracky jacks or their jammies. They're seeing all the shirt and ties. It reminds me of life. So thank you for having me. I'm just going to share a screen and see if hopefully that works. Yeah, there we go. Can everyone see that? Hopefully yes. That's coming through for everyone. So yeah, I know the topic is recovery, but I thought I might just start by giving a bit of a rundown on how things are going at the airport, because I think the airport's a really good litmus test for how the city is going, and it tends to be then when we're cutting, the city is bleeding. So and that's primarily because we're an inbound destination airport. Over 70% of our customers are flying into the Gold Coast for a holiday leisure or to visit friends and family. So if we're finding things, tough at the airport, it tends to be a fairly good representation of how things are going across the city. So this is a graph that I hope I don't have to show too many times, but prior to the pandemic, the Gold Coast Airport was the 6th busiest airport in Australia, the 5th busiest for international flights. So we did about 6.5 million passengers a year, so 420 flights a week. And at the moment we've got 3 flights a week. So basically we just have 1 flight between Sydney and the Gold Coast with Virgin. Mondays, Wednesday, Fridays, and whereas the loads were quite light to start with, that they've picked up. So there's usually over 100 people coming and going on those services. But if you consider in April last year, we did 560,000 passengers for the month. We just under 2,000 for the month in April this year. So it's pretty dismal statistics. So we're 99.7% down on traffic, which I expect is representative of a lot of businesses across the city. I suppose one of the unique opportunities this presents is that we are on Friday co-hosting with Hot Tomato a concert on our runway with Shepherd. I don't know if many of you know Shepherd. They're a pretty cool. They've won awards and cool Queensland band. So the fact that we have not much traffic on our runway, we are using the opportunity to host that concert. There won't be anybody there, but beautiful images of the Gold Coast will be beamed across hopefully Australia and the world to remind everyone what a fabulous destination we are, and that when they can come back that we would really love to see them. So that will be available to watch live on the Gold Coast Airport and Hot Tomato websites, or sorry, Facebook sites. So please everyone jump in there. But before COVID, things were going pretty well at the airport. We had our busiest day ever in January, over 25,000 people using the airport, and things were starting to look up. We're obviously neck deep in our expansion plans. So we are, and so some of the capital projects that we have undergo, they've been going quite well. And in fact, to a certain extent, we've been able to use the opportunity of less traffic to get some of the more complex parts of some of our capital projects done when the apron is a bit clearer. So we've been taking advantage of that where we can. And the hotel put up their big Regis sign just in the last week or so. So and the hoarding starting to come down. So it's fabulous to see. It reminds us of the future that we have coming, to see those kind of developments progressing. But clearly the occupancy of that hotel is linked to the occupancy of the airport and how we're going. So we're just working with the operator on when that will actually open, based on passenger recovery over the next number of months. I suppose in terms of the positives is there's so much research happening at the moment, whether it's Tourism and Transport Forum and others, to try focus on what that recovery looks like. And it's really good news for Queensland, and particularly good news for the Gold Coast. So basically, in terms of travel intentions, in terms of travel intentions for the next 6 months, Queensland is the most desired state, and Gold Coast within Queensland is the most desired destination. And the reasons are that, people have been locked up with their family and homeschooling and all these things. So people are looking for a destination where they can, get out, have some fun, get among nature, go to the beach. And particularly for our southern ports, obviously our winter is a beautiful time to come to the Gold Coast. Prior to this, Sydney Gold Coast and Melbourne Gold Coast were in the top 4 busiest routes in Australia. So Sydney and Melbourne love the Gold Coast, and clearly a lot of family and friends live there here. So that's visiting friends and family, and obviously leisure. And it's not just tourism. All the industry bodies, Webjet, Expedia, as you see here, and this is about actual intentions to travel. So from October 1st to December 31st, again, all this different data shows that the Gold Coast is top of mind for everyone, particularly as other destinations where people might go for that kind of holiday are not available to them. So people who might go to Bali, who might have gone on a cruise, and that type of holiday will, if they're not available, people will definitely come to the Gold Coast. we do support the concept of that Tasman bubble. We would really support that, because I think we have over 60,000 people from New Zealand living on the Gold Coast. So again, our winter temperatures are commensurate with the summer temperatures in New Zealand. So if we could, you know, when it's safe to do so, and get that relationship and that bubble happening between New Zealand and the Gold Coast, I think we'd all benefit. We'd all benefit from travel and from people in New Zealand wanting to come to the Gold Coast. So that's just a bit of an overview where we're at. So I suppose just, and this is me nearly done, we do see it as a domestic-led recovery. But you know, the lack of certainty around borders opening is, you know, it's making things very difficult, particularly in an aviation context, because airlines can't just turn things on, and they have to get their crew, they have to get obviously the metal, and then obviously they have to market the flights, and then consumers have to know that they're available with surety. And you know, I'm sure prior to this there was a lot of cancellations and a lot of credits, so people have to have confidence that the borders will be open at a certain point in time, and that they can book with confidence and travel. As an industry, we're working with airlines and other airports to ensure that, you know, we have all the checks and balances in place as much as we can in terms of the cleaning and messaging and all that at airports, to keep again, to build confidence. Not only can they book, but that that they should. We absolutely support ongoing support for government marketing of the Gold Coast, and there'll be a lot of people looking for marketing and funding support. But you know, the Gold Coast is the engine room for Queensland tourism, so we're lobbying and working really hard to make sure that we secure that kind of support for marketing. And then also for infrastructure, it's great to see that more discussion again around the light rail potentially coming to the airport and the M1, but just really those kind of infrastructure projects to get the city going again are extremely important. And then we really do see that we do need two strong domestic carriers, and it's very interesting. Obviously, everyone's watching with interest what's happening with the Virgin administration. So we're massively hopeful that, you know, something positive will come out of this. But in any industry, a monopoly is probably not the best outcome from a consumer's perspective. So we're very hopeful that we get a good, strong competitor again in the domestic market. I don't think anyone knows what that's going to look like, and I expect it might be a different type of carrier. We don't honestly know, but there are four parties in the mix for bidding for Virgin, and in the next week or so that will be down to two, and then I think it's the 12th of June where the non-binding bids go in. So it'll be very interesting to see what comes out of that, and fingers crossed we keep that good competitive environment for the aviation market, because I think we'll need that too. And that's just some our ambassadors are they were one of the first group we had to stand down at the airport just to keep them safe. So we very much looking forward to having our team back and our ambassadors back on board and getting the airport and the economy going again. And that's it from me.
Thanks, Marion. That was fabulous. Robbie, I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right, Ken, we'll just get everything swapped over. Bear with us.
Just going to take over the screen share.
Yep. Okay, just give us that usual. Well, ladies and gentlemen, certainly very interesting times out there at the moment, and what I try to do is perhaps give you a little bit of feedback from people that have been speaking It could be a potential strategy to take a business forward, starting quickly with some of the news that was around last week. And I think it's a good thing for the chamber that it's recognised with.
Excuse me, Robbie, sorry to cut in. Can you getting a bit of feedback with your microphone?
How's that? I've just moved it over a little bit.
Much better, thank you.
Much better? Okay. What I was saying is that I think the news, and I think it's a great thing for the chamber, that the report, the survey that you conducted is used in the paper, and certainly some very interesting points in there when you read through it. I particularly noted three of the comments there. Business across the Gold Coast fared relatively worse than the state for profitability. Discussions with the Gold Coast business community suggest that the economic downturn is being felt sooner, and forecasts for the June quarter indicate the Gold Coast businesses are anticipating conditions to deteriorate even further. And from the people I've been talking to, that is so relevant. So I guess the little cartoons there, the one about is America going to have to run off to China to get some more money? Exactly how much damage has been done by these cruise ships? Will Australia actually cross the bridge to recovery? How hard is it going to be? And even things to deal with now, such as the last article there talking about, do we end up with negative interest rates? And our banks don't have a system that can handle that at the moment, but are they going to have to do it in New Zealand, and that'll be the trial for Australia? So business-wise, we certainly have a lot to think about at the moment. Is all this that's happening just the tip of the iceberg? I suggest it might be. So we're going to have to prepare. So what I'm saying is it's a new world out there for small business post-COVID. So let's have a look at what I'd be suggesting. Is it a new business or a new business environment? Let's look at what you are going to need going forward. Firstly, and this is a little bit interesting at the moment, you need to revisit your vision. You need to assess your resources, create a plan, start the implementation, check your health. And a very interesting one here at the bottom, power up your attitude. Interesting comment, but everyone's going to have to get their attitude right if we're going to be successful. And going back to the airport, I guess you could always say your attitude will determine your altitude, won't it? So we're going to have to power up our attitudes as we go forward. When it comes to everybody's vision at the moment, what was or is your original vision? Now, where does that sit today with your business? For example, your business was to have 100 clients producing 5,000 gross profit each. Due to the virus, you only have 50 left and they are producing 3,000 each. So your revenue is now 70% down to 150,000. So what does that really mean? I think it means we're going to do a lot of hard work and have to think a little bit about the future. So first up, I'd suggest you have a big decision. Do I change my vision? Well, I'm suggesting no. Why would I say that? I think your vision doesn't need to change, only the timing. So what do we need to do? Well, just a little funny one here. I think you should be more explicit here on step 2. So is there a miracle out there? I don't think so. I think it's hard work that we're in for. So let's talk about preparing. In the new world, you need to shorten your time frame for planning. I was reading a report from one of the lecturers at Queensland Uni the other day saying, well, we now have to take it further out and have a 10-year plan. As much as I agree with that, I also think on the short term, we need to think 1 to 2 years and what are we going to do? It's going to need a new plan. You're going to have to look at your available resources. We need to implement your plan and strategy. Make sure your attitude and health are good, very, very important. And one more big one that I'll address in a couple of slides' time. Okay, on the prepare a new plan, what are the issues? What is your business direction in this new world? Have you done your research? How is your data? How is your potential or your clients going? Have you thought through this? How has the virus affected those clients or potential clients? Can they pay you? This is going to be a very, very interesting situation you're going to have to address going forward if you're dealing with clients. Can they actually pay you? Does it require a large financial commitment to supply them? So are you potentially borrowing money, or do you have to put in a lot of money to perhaps promote your goods and services? What risks are you taking on? What products and services will you be offering as we get back to some form of normality? Look at your available resources. How are your finances? What's your cash position? What are your assets? What's your borrowing capacity? What support is out there for you, both monetary and physical? Do you have a security blanket? What is your security blanket? And here's the big one I said. It's interesting, I quite often watch a show on Fox and they've got a group of 5 people they talk to, and it sounds a bit familiar when you say you need to pick the 5. So what does pick the 5 mean? What I'm talking about here is you need to look at 5 people who will help you achieve your vision and your goals going forward. And amongst those 5 people, I think they're going to be able to offer a lot of help to you. These are the biggest and most important decisions you will make for your future success. So this is going to be your security blanket as we go forward. These are not necessarily paid positions, by the way, and some may exist in the current staff that you have. But you need to search for the others, and many options are probably right in front of you with people you already know, might be other members of the chamber. There are going to be opportunities out there to ask for help, and in most cases, it will not cost you much. These are 5 people that you are going to handpick to help you achieve your goals and vision as we go into the new world. So what are these people? Who are these people, and what skills do they require to help you? These are the biggest and most important decisions you will make for your future success. So pick wisely. I'm going to go through 6 points now that I believe the assets that these 5 people need to have amongst them. Some of those assets may be yourself, but you need somebody that's good with figures. This may be your accountant or bookkeeper. In this new world, it will be vital that the commercial side of the business is spot on. Costings and pricings will determine the success of the business going forward. This will require ongoing monitoring. Always remember, if this is not correct, you could be the victim of the old harder the work, the more I lose saying. You don't want to be this person. So you need to get your numbers in order. You're going to need an IT professional, someone with amazing IT skills, but practical too. There's a lot of people running around out there saying they've got great IT skills, but you need somebody that's practical, particularly in this environment. In today's world, a business may be able to deal with the old-fashioned ways, or must be able to deal with the old-fashioned ways, as well as jump to the future and beyond. Your business needs to be mobile and must always be prepared for unforeseen events into the future. You must have the data and know how to use it. You need to double check how secure your systems are. Very important at the moment. There's a lot of breaches going on and a lot of people being broken into, so they need to check out the security of their systems. Third point, somebody with a background in people skills. Normally from a management role, this person needs to guide you and help you to understand that the world is very different and some people will never be the same to deal with again. Empathy, understanding people, getting into their shoes, is going to help you understand your new environment and has the potential to lift your standing in the community and in business. Fourth point, somebody with good sales skills. You need a person with the gift of the gab who can communicate your business and value proposition. You will probably have a news story and a value chain around what your business is now offering. You will benefit from having someone to bounce ideas off as you create your new ways for customer engagement. You need to become the storyteller or hero for your business going forward. These are facts that are going to be very important for the recovery. The fifth point, someone with attention to detail. The fifth person is somebody who understands documents, maybe a lawyer. Many companies and their directors would be nervous after some of the outcomes from COVID-19 virus. If you are a director, even of your own company, you are going to have to spend a lot more time understanding your commitments and responsibilities as a director. You will have to be able to justify at any time that you have prepared your company for any future events. It will be important that your documentation is impeccable and that anything you sign is in your best interest. Remember, your suppliers going forward are going to want to make sure that they are always in a strong position and you are the one to carry the risk. This might be a bit harsh, but it's a new world out there. Look after number one, and that is you. The last asset I'm looking for here is someone with some creative skills. Bit of an entrepreneur. Here is the loose cannon or the lunatic that you need. Well, not really, I suppose that's the wrong terminology, but very factual. It's people like Screw Turner from Flight Centre, Richard Branson, jumping off piers and jetties over the years, going to space or saying he wants to go to space. Guys like Bill Gates, didn't like school. Kylie Jenner, creates lipstick and becomes a billionaire. Walt Disney used to sit in the backyard drawing pictures of a mouse. So, you probably know these names. There's a lot more very, sort of out there at the moment. Elon Musk and his SpaceX about to launch a rocket tomorrow. You need a little bit of an entrepreneurial flair with this current environment. This person will help you with the creative side of the business. They will help you through some of those tough decisions that you'll have to make. They will provide that powerful but positive push you will sometimes need in this new world. These selections and their skills will help you with your new success. So in summary, this group of their skills are here to help you today and in a crisis situations. They will help you with the big and important decisions. They do not run your business. That's a very important thing. They don't run your business, you do. They are there to help you with the future success. So pick wisely when you're picking these people. It's interesting, that's myself and my wife in 2000, the Christmas before the 9/11 in the US. What you know about the future, we don't know what the future beholds. So very important that we get it right, or we prepare ourselves for unforeseen changes. The next step, I believe, if you have a partner in life, I would suggest you sit down and discuss the plan with that person before you go to the next step. You actually want their support. Then discuss your vision with your new team of advisors. Remember, you don't want just yes people. Out of this discussion, you should end up with a plan. Now, start implementing it, with the 5 being a sounding board and a check on you. Are you doing what you said you would? And to do that, you need to have some monthly reporting that works. It just always works. You need management accounts. You need, what's your prospecting pipeline? Where's your future business coming from? Sales, how are sales going? How is the client satisfaction at the moment? What sort of staffing? How is your staff going? How are they, getting through this environment? And a performance report to sit down and go through your advisor team with. Always remember this, the harder you work, the luckier you get. My definition of good luck has always been when all my preparation meets a moment of opportunity. That's my definition of good luck. So what I'd say to everybody is good luck. Whatever you create, your goals and vision are waiting. Sure, blow that picture back up, thanks. That's my little speech there for you, Marshall. Put them back up.
Thank you, Robbie. Very, very insightful. We'll now move to the question component of the webinar. And if you've got any questions, please type them into that chat forum, and I'll just move to that now. And I know that there's already a number of questions there. So I might just start off with you, Marion. Initially, obviously a lot of questions around the airport and its capacity to reopen and reopen quickly. So there's one question here just asking, with the amount of workforce capacity currently inactive, does the airport have the capacity to kickstart and get back to the capacity it had prior to the COVID-19 crisis?
It's a really good question. Thanks, Joshua. So basically, there's 2 components to that. The first is us ourselves, the airport. So, in terms of our crunching, our sort of right-sizing resources, I hate that term, we have made sure that we keep the people with the operational and technical skills on board. So they're still working with this. And whereas we've actually closed outside of the 3 flights a week, the actual terminal itself is closed. The aerodrome remains open. So our operational team out there, the maintenance team, they're all still doing their thing because we are obliged to keep the aerodrome open. And there's been the general aviation flight training, that type of activity is still going on. So we will ramp up when, and we've, as I said, we've been very mindful also working with people like our security partner, because clearly we can't reopen the terminal if we can't screen people and keep people safe. So we have our standard operating procedures in place to ramp up from all those areas once we get the go ahead, and we can do that relatively quickly. We had no flights at all, and then within 24 hours we were ready to even do the 3 that we have. So I think that's fine, but it is a between 2 and 4 week process for the airlines, because as we said, they need to get those fares into market. They need to let people know they're there, and people need to book them, which is why we would say, if it was, we're getting some really good health results. So based on that, we were able to open our borders in July. To get a decision on that relatively soon would be really important to give, and not just for us, but for your members, for people who are accommodation providers. Everyone needs to know that the people are coming, and it's not just the airport and the airlines. So we'd all like a little bit of notice on that. I think it would work because everyone has to mobilize. So the sooner the better would be the answer to that.
Marion, just a follow-up question. Has there been any discussions with the airlines around A, their capacity to mobilise quickly, and B, whether they would be changing the travel conditions that they used to operate under? I know that Qantas came out a week ago and said that when they resume, there won't be any variation to the number of seats and the number of passengers on each plane, but there would be some new operating conditions with masks, etc. I just wonder if you could expand on that.
Okay, so we are in daily dialogue with, I suppose, the first part of that question with our airline partners, and we're hearing that when the certainty around the borders, they would like to put capacity into Gold Coast. So as we said, it will be a domestic, they will go where people want to book. And as we've seen from some of the data, thankfully, because of our wonderful, gorgeous destination, people want to come here. So that's really good. So we're working with them, and we know that that will come. It's not going to be, you turn it on and it's back to the way it was. It's going to take a long time to get back to, people are talking about potentially up to 2023 to get back to what 2019 looked like. And that's, different people have different views on that. So it's not like we're going to open the doors and the place is going to be as busy as it was before. So we will have time to grow into the new demand, which gives us a time to sort out, I suppose, a lot of the issues around the second part of that question. So we are working as an aviation industry together on this, I suppose, the journey, and it's important for the consumer to feel and be safe in order to have confidence to fly again. One of the main differences that everything we do in aviation in terms of security is a layering process. So we're not just depending on the screener, we're not just depending on any one thing. It's a layering process, and we would see that being the same in terms of COVID. So we have working with our airline partners is to start the process as soon as possible. So downstream as soon as possible, getting people to check online as much as possible, filling out health questionnaires, telling them what to expect. So really doing a lot of that screening downstream. Airports would love to be in the position that we are at Gold Coast, where we are mostly self-service check-in now as well. So people kind of drop their bag and go. We've pretty much eliminated queuing at check-in because of that technology. But I think you'll see a lot of more and more of that at airports. And then obviously there'll be the hyper cleaning, the messaging, and in the beginning obviously will be and we're working to social distance, but we are it is difficult to know how that will look when next year when the passenger numbers start to really come back. So if you were to have 4 square meters per person in an airport environment, airports would need to be, 3-4 times the size, and the economics of that are difficult. But we won't get there for a long time, and we'll have all these other layers in place to manage that in the interim. So we're working through that, and it's actually quite encouraging that ourselves and the airlines are working on that together as an industry, and putting forward suggestions that will manage it, as I said, right down the food chain as much as possible.
Marion, just in relation to the terminal expansion, you mentioned that there had been opportunity to advance some works that might have normally been restricted with the passage through the terminal. I just wonder, is there any prospect of the terminal expansion finishing early?
We're actually, the timing of the terminal opening is twofold. One is around obviously the ability to deliver it, but the second is the requirement for it when we need to activate it. And again, we're talking about a trans-Tasman bubble, but it seems to be a long way off in terms of opening up the international borders. We haven't had an international flight since the 24th of March. So that's something that we're just working through at the moment. Is the construction's going well, but what would be the timing to, it is a 3-level, it's a massive facility. So we're just working through that. I don't have a clear definitive answer on that. It's just something that we're working through at the moment, is around the timing of the opening of that building.
Okay, thank you. Robbie, we might move across to you with a question. Robbie, I just wonder, at what point should businesses start assessing what the new normal is? There's been a lot of narrative around understanding the new market conditions, but there's also been a lot of discussion around really understanding when the right time to do that is, and that the conditions have to settle. And so I'm just wondering what your thoughts might be around when's the best timing for making that assessment?
Ken, I would suggest that probably 80% of business that we deal with on the Gold Coast here, we have 500 companies as clients, and most of those, we've got probably 10 or 15 that are using the time to prepare for bigger and better things. The rest of them are trying to work out what the new world's going to look like and how they're going to reduce costs. Trying to predict revenue is very, very difficult for them. Again, maybe if the border was opened up, it'll put a little bit more certainty into an environment like the Gold Coast. But at the moment, no one's really game enough to predict revenue. And so you've got this very unusual environment where people are ringing you up saying, well, I just don't know when I'm going to have revenue. At the moment, I'm living off my savings, but that's not going to go forever. And even to the extreme that I found very unusual, for the first time ever in my life, I've had people ringing me saying, I've closed the doors of my business. I don't know when it's going to reopen. How do you actually apply for a job? Because I need to get some money from somewhere. So I don't think anyone's really worked out when they need to go forward. What I tried to say in my little presentation there was, maybe it's a good time to think about your business and who can actually help, because it's going to be very difficult to work out exactly when you make that decision to start moving forward again.
Okay. That revenue is very clearly a real challenge for all businesses. I've observed that myself. Just scrolling through these questions. Marion, is there any freight movement through the Gold Coast?
Yeah, we're not. Freight was something we were working on, particularly with the Northern New South Wales government before COVID. But most of the freight really goes in the belly of passenger aircraft. So no passenger aircraft essentially means it's the same as the passengers, not much freight. But I do believe as we recover, freight is an opportunity for this region. It's complex. You know, freight, you have to have storage and roads, and you know, it's not simple, but it's definitely was on the radar before this, and I'm sure it's something we'll pick up with gusto when this is behind us, which it will be at some point in time. We will look back on this. It's not our life forever.
But you Marion, you provided that information from the various tourism surveys talking about the popularity of the Gold Coast as a destination. I just wonder how much of that very up-to-date survey information is being passed on to government. I know some business people have been frustrated by the debate around opening up the borders on the basis that government is relying on a lot of old information around people's habits and travel, and there's also this parallel debate going around, which is that this is a very real opportunity for the Gold Coast to be reintroduced into a much wider market.
Yep.
And so I just wonder how much. I know that yesterday that Martin Hall and Paul Donovan and John Witheroff and Tony Cochrane and the like met with the Premier on the Gold Coast, with Kate Jones as well. And I just wonder how much of that current data is being passed on to government.
Yeah, it's a good question. Particularly that the biggest survey and the one that was the Tourism and Transport Forum, and that absolutely Margie Osmond has done a fantastic job of being very vocal around that data. And she was on Sky News last week and actually called out the Gold Coast in the media based on that data as the number one searched intention, not just like I think I might, but intention to travel destination. So I know it's I have no doubt that the government are aware of that. I also have no doubt that they know the Gold Coast is doing it tough and we need to get going again, but every day counts. So and it's balancing. We obviously with health, we have had some fantastic health outcomes. So it would be really great if we could just lock in, which was originally the stage 3 plan, which was July. I think we all got a bit hopeful around that July date. So based on those great medical outcomes, hopefully we can get some surety around that border opening.
It seems to be the key to so many things.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions out there? I'm just scrolling through the questions and I think I've covered. Hang on, I've got another one here from Josh. Josh being the unluckiest hotel operator in the world, having opened up the Quest at Ravenna during COVID-19. So our heart goes out to you, Josh. For you, Robbie, the new normal appears to be guided by government rather than consumer-based on observation of how people are interacting in the public largely. Is this anticipated to be a temporary shift in the forced consumer behaviour rather than a permanent shift in business as a real new normal? Does that question make sense to you, Robbie?
Yeah, the way I'm reading it, Josh, and you're only across the road from me, so we'll have to catch up. I did see a marketing flyer from you come on the email the other day that you were there and inviting people to come across and have a look. So congratulations on that. That's fantastic. But maybe if I used a particular sector and say I use childcare. Childcare is really trying to see how much the government is going to provide, and there's a fair gap between what the government is providing and what they need to receive as payments for the children. So that's where this government thing's going to come in so much. How much will they continue to support that? How much will it be? That whole sector, and that's a massive sector of the Australian business community now, they're really just waiting to see what the government is going to do. So that's just one sector that you'd have to say, geez, that's really depending on the government a lot. And, you know, maybe a little bit cynical, but once this JobKeeper stops, it's going to put a lot of businesses to a very, very difficult test. So whether the government decides to perhaps review some of that, to continue it on, or what they're doing. So yes, I agree, we're very much in the hands of the government at the moment. Of course, if you're in a fortunate position that you're very cashed up at the moment, you're probably going to be able to pick up some businesses and help develop them into the future at a very competitive price, and maybe, you know, have a lot of success with them in the future. So unfortunately, the government has certainly got a lot of control, but the people out there that are in a good financial position, have very good balance sheets, will probably gain considerably from all this as well.
I think too.
I guess sorry, go on.
No, let's go, Rob. No, absolutely, go going, Rob. Thought you were done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose the government too are obviously at the hands of the voters, and I was listening to Bernard Salt the other night, and on his and he's the king of how the young people will never be able to afford a house because they're spending too much money on smashed avocado with feta. So that was his big thing. But he was talking and this is the economics. I'm sure we all saw it when we were wandering around town with the few cafes and bars that opened up, and just how can they possibly be making any money? And Bernard was saying that the price of avocado and feta, because the sheer economics of a restaurant obviously is, you know, spend per head by seat type scenario. And if you only have a quarter of the people in there, the price of smashed avocado will probably get to, you know, $30-40 if they're to make any money, and no one will go there. So I think at some point in time, this will have to, you know, it will shift from government to business to community, while everyone recognizes the health is paramount. But there'll have to be some sort of shift, because the long-term sustainability of operating like this just isn't there.
Yeah, I think, Marion, I think there was some discussion in the media yesterday around Sydney restaurants, but the commentary applies nationally, and that is that the major restaurant operators have a view that the industry will substantially shrink over the next 12 months. And I suspect the offering will change materially as well. And I suppose that's and Robbie, you might comment on this. The challenge in this time is to respond quickly to the changing conditions in the marketplace, and to really understand what the customers' needs and wants are right now. Not what they were 12 months ago, but what are they right now? So, Robbie, have you got any comment about that, about being adaptive and capacity to change and adopting?
That's why, Ken, I was saying you really need to get a few people around you at the moment, because it's very difficult. You've had a business, you've built it, and you have your ways of doing things, and that has changed dramatically at this particular time. But you've got to look at all those other aspects, like what are your clients, and you know, what's their survival rate at the moment. And I know some businesses, even, you know, our IT business, we've got clients out there that if we turn off their phones and their computers, we would completely destroy them. But we're very, very concerned as whether they'll ever be able to pay their bills as well. So it makes it very difficult on your business. You've got to say, well, if we shut down for this guy now, we wipe them, they're finished, we'll wind their business up. If we continue to support them, we might end up with a sizable bad debt. So everyone's going to have to go through different stories like this. In a restaurant, they've got to take the option, well, I've got 10 people coming in and maybe a few takeaways coming to the door. It's not really going to pay for anybody, but I'll go close to paying for it. How long can I maintain that to try and keep my customers coming and knowing that I'm still in business? So that decision-making process is going to be increasingly difficult. As we start to open up and recover, making those decisions is going to be very difficult. And that's why I think you need to rely on other people around you at the moment for a little bit of help. I think there's a lot of mental pressure is going to be out there. I think everybody needs to gather around each other in this environment.
In terms of workforce management, I just wonder if we could get a comment from both of you around what proportion of the workforce you think might be in 12 months still working in remote environments. Because it seems to me that that's one area that is not going to go back quickly. In fact, it'll be a permanent change.
It's an interesting one. I think we have, I think there's two messages. We know that we can do it now. We also know that we don't want to do it all the time. You know, we're missing. So I think there'll be a balance there. I think from an aviation perspective, it'll be interesting because even for me, a lot of the trips that I used to do to Sydney and Canberra, I probably realize now that I can do those, you know, but you know, having said that, it's not a substitute every time for everything. So I think there will be obviously a lot more flexibility working from home, but it'll be interesting to see in the fullness of time where this lands. But there'll be definitely some changes around that, around our shopping behaviors. A lot more people have experienced shopping online for the first time and might have enjoyed that as well. So I think it's not just the working at home. I think there's going to be a lot of different behaviors that have been forced on us. Some of them we've quite enjoyed. Some of them we're saying it works, but not for me every time. So yeah, it'll be a different landscape. And as it even in an aviation market, we're trying to work out what that looks like.
If I can just comment there, Ken, one of the risk of getting into trouble, one of the interesting aspects of people working from home, we noticed productivity on quite a number of the staff working at home drop the best part of 50%. And when we spoke to them, it was because their kids were at home. I said it is so hard when you're working from home and the kids are running up and jumping all over you and they're making noise and that. It's very difficult to have the same output from home if you've got your kids there. Yeah, we've had some people working from home and their productivity has actually been excellent because we spoke to them as well and they said, well, without kids and that, I'm at home, no one's disrupting me and I'm just getting on with the work. So somewhere in there, I don't know where that somewhere is, but there'll be a balance of some people working from home and some people not. But perhaps I throw one other point in there too, like some of our clients are directly into the New York Stock Exchange. So we had a lot of trouble setting those people up that they were trading shares on the New York Stock Exchange from a home. So the system over there is saying, well, who's this person on a laptop in a house somewhere in Australia going into our system? And of course, when we went to go in and work with them, suddenly came up, well, who's this engineer trying to doctor the system that we can go into the New York Stock Exchange and buy shares? So at the moment, everyone's being fairly tolerant with that. But I just wonder, does that change somewhere like the New York Stock Exchange says, well, we're no longer prepared to let people at home go in and buy stocks on this exchange. That's going to have to go back to the office. So there's a lot of thinking going ahead, isn't there? And it could change so dramatically. In one person makes a decision at that New York Stock Exchange, and everybody around the world that has access through their merchant banks, etc., is suddenly shut out if they're still operating from home. So yeah, there's a lot to think about.
Thanks, Robbie. I think we might close it out there. I've got one. Troy, thanks for your positivity around Zoom meetings. Marshall Hall's really thrown a crazy question out there for you, Marion, about Japan looking to pay people or to subsidise the cost of international travel to get people to come to their country. That's obviously a long way out, given where we are now. But when all the restrictions are lifted, is this something that might be supported by the tourism airport infrastructure sector?
I think some countries that were hit hard by COVID will have to work harder than others to get people back. I think with Australia, COVID is actually something that has enhanced our reputation globally and our managing of it as a country, how quickly we got on top of it, how comparatively few. I know I'm not playing it down in Australia, but compared to, I've got family in living in Spain, Europe, obviously China, Japan. So basically, it's actually from, you know, we always had a brand about being healthy and safe, and our handling of COVID probably has enhanced that. So so we probably, you know, that's probably not something I suspect. I think if we were to go out and really strongly market our destination, as opposed to, you know, subsidizing the destination, I think that would probably be a good approach for Australians.
Okay. Well, we might close it out there. A very big thank you to Marion and Robbie, both very busy people, but gee, with such wonderful insight today. And we're very appreciative of you giving up your time to spend some time with our members and assist all of us during this challenging time. So thank you very much, everyone. Please support the Chamber, and if you've got any suggestions for any future webinars, please let us know. If you're not a member, please become a member. We do have a 6-month membership fee holiday at the moment, so there's no financial burden associated with becoming a member, and we do try and advocate for the business community on the Gold Coast. So thank you, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the webinar, and have a great day.
Have a great day. Nice to meet you, Robbie. See
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, nice to meet you, Marion. Yes, very good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.